Last fall, my girlfriend and I decided we needed to get away for a few days. Both of us had been working long hours for months, and life had slowly become the same routine every single day. Work, sleep, repeat. We wanted somewhere quiet, somewhere far away from traffic, noise, and people. After browsing rental sites for a while, we eventually found a small wooden cabin located deep in a forested area in northern Montana. The photos looked almost unreal. A simple cabin surrounded by tall pine trees, a dirt driveway, and a small lake about 10 minutes away. The description mentioned that the nearest town was about 20 minutes by car, and that the property was perfect for people looking for peace and quiet. That sounded exactly like what we wanted. We booked 3 nights. The drive there took almost 5 hours. At first, we were on normal highways, passing through small towns and farmland. But as we got closer to the area where the cabin was located, the roads gradually became narrower and more isolated. Eventually, we turned off the highway onto a long gravel road that ran straight into the forest. Tall trees lined both sides of the road, creating a tunnel-like path that seemed to go on forever. For long stretches, we didn't see a single other vehicle. No houses, no signs, just forest. The deeper we drove into the woods, the more isolated everything felt. About 15 minutes down the gravel road, our GPS told us we were getting close. A few seconds later, we saw it. The cabin. It sat slightly back from the road, surrounded by trees on all sides. It looked exactly like the photos online. Small, wooden, and completely quiet. But one thing immediately stood out. There was another house nearby, not directly next to the cabin, but close enough that you could clearly see it from the driveway, maybe about 100 meters away. It looked older than the cabin, a larger wooden house with a wide porch facing the road. As we slowly pulled into the cabin's driveway, we noticed someone standing on that porch. A man. He wasn't doing anything. He was just standing there, arms resting on the porch railing, staring. I made a small joke to my girlfriend as we parked the car. Guessed the neighbors noticed the tourists. But as we started unloading our bags from the car, I kept glancing over toward that house, and every time I looked, the man was still there, still watching. At one point, I even gave a small wave in his direction. He didn't wave back, didn't nod, didn't react at all. After a few minutes, he finally turned around and walked back inside his house. We figured that was the end of it, and for a while everything felt normal again. The cabin itself was actually really nice, simple but comfortable. A small living area, kitchen, bedroom, and a wooden porch that looked out into the forest. After unpacking our things, we decided to take a short walk down the gravel road just to explore the area a little. The forest was beautiful, tall trees everywhere, and the air was so quiet it almost felt unreal. But as we walked down the road, something caught my attention again. The neighbor's house. From the road, you could see the front yard clearly, and standing near the edge of the property was the same man again, watching us. This time he was closer to the road, standing near an old pickup truck parked in the driveway. And again, he wasn't doing anything. He was just watching. The longer we walked down the road, the more uncomfortable the situation started to feel. Because every time we looked back, he was still standing there. Eventually, we turned around and headed back toward the cabin. As we passed his house, I gave a polite nod, just a simple gesture people usually do when acknowledging someone. He stared at us for a moment, then finally spoke. "You two staying in that cabin?" His voice was calm, but cold. I said yes, we had rented it for a few days. He looked past us toward the cabin for a moment, then back at us. "People around here don't like tourists much." The way he said it didn't sound like a joke or a friendly warning. It sounded more like a statement. I had tried to keep things polite. I just said we were only there for a short vacation. He didn't respond. He just kept staring for another second, then turned around and walked back toward his house. At that point, we assumed maybe he was just one of those locals who didn't like outsiders. It happens sometimes in remote places. Still, the interaction left us feeling a little uneasy. That evening, we decided to make dinner and relax outside by the small fire pit near the cabin. The sun slowly disappeared behind the trees, and the forest became darker and quieter. By the time night fully settled in, the only light around us came from the fire and the stars above. The silence was incredible. No traffic, no distant city noise, just the occasional sound of wind moving through the trees. Around 10 p.m., we heard something in the distance. An engine, a vehicle coming down the gravel road. Within a few seconds, headlights appeared through the trees. A pickup truck. The same truck we had seen earlier in the neighbor's driveway. It drove slowly past our cabin, but instead of continuing down the road, it slowed, almost to a stop. The driver's window rolled down, and the same man leaned slightly out of the truck. He stared directly at us sitting by the fire. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then he said something. "Tourists." The way he said it sounded more like an insult than a description. I tried to keep the situation calm. I just said we were staying for a couple of days and planned to keep things quiet. He didn't respond to that. He just looked at the cabin again, then back at us, and said something that immediately made the situation more uncomfortable. "You should lock your doors at night." Then he drove away. At first, we tried to convince ourselves he was just being weird. Maybe he thought he was giving us advice, but the tone of his voice didn't feel friendly. That night, we went to bed around midnight. The cabin was dark and quiet, and eventually we both fell asleep. But sometime later, I woke up suddenly. At first, I didn't know what woke me. Then I heard it, a sound outside. Gravel shifting under someone's footsteps. Slow, careful footsteps right outside the cabin. My girlfriend woke up a few seconds later and whispered, "Do you hear that?" We both stayed completely still, listening. The footsteps moved slowly across the porch, then stopped, right outside the front door. For about 10 seconds, everything was silent. Then, there was a knock. 3 slow knocks on the cabin door. No voice, no explanation, just knocking. And in that moment, one thing became very clear. We were deep in the forest, miles away from town, and someone outside the cabin knew exactly where we were. A couple of years ago, my girlfriend and I decided to take a short weekend vacation. Nothing fancy, just a quiet place to relax for a few days, somewhere outside the city. We had both been working long hours, and honestly, we just wanted somewhere peaceful where we could disconnect for a while. After searching online for a bit, we found a small boutique hotel located in a quiet countryside area about 2 hours away from where we lived. The photos made it look really nice. A modern building surrounded by trees with a small outdoor pool and spa area that included a sauna and steam room. It looked like the perfect place to unwind for a weekend. When we arrived, it was late afternoon, just before sunset. The hotel itself looked even nicer in person than in the pictures. It wasn't a large place, maybe 10 or 12 rooms total. The lobby had a warm, welcoming feel with soft lighting and a small reception desk near the entrance. As soon as we walked in, the receptionist greeted us politely. She seemed friendly and professional. While she checked our reservation, she mentioned something interesting. "You're lucky," she said. "You got the last available room tonight." At the time, that didn't seem strange. Small hotels fill up quickly sometimes, especially on weekends. But what did feel a little odd was something else. The place felt empty. We didn't see a single other guest. No one sitting in the lobby, no people walking in the hallway, no voices coming from other rooms, just quiet. Still, we didn't think much about it. The receptionist gave us our room key and explained where everything was located. She mentioned that the outdoor pool and spa area stayed open until midnight. That included the sauna and steam room. After checking into our room and unpacking our bags, we decided to go explore the spa area before dinner. It was located outside behind the hotel. The moment we stepped out there, we realized how peaceful the place really was. The sun had almost set, and the sky had that soft orange and purple color just before night. The outdoor pool lights were already on, casting a soft glow across the water. Next to the pool, there were two small spa buildings. One was the sauna, the other was the steam room. There was still no one else around, no other guests, no staff members, just us. At first, we actually liked that. It felt like we had the entire spa area to ourselves. After swimming for a bit, we decided to try the steam room. The building was small and simple, a wooden door with a glass window and a sign that said steam room. Inside, it was warm, humid, and filled with thick steam that made it hard to see more than a few feet. We sat down on the tiled bench and just relaxed. For the first 10 minutes, everything felt great. The warm steam was relaxing after the long drive. We talked quietly about dinner plans and what we wanted to do the next day. Eventually, we decided it was probably time to get out before it got too hot. I stood up and walked to the door. And that's when something strange happened. The door wouldn't open. At first, I assumed I had just pushed the handle the wrong way. Steam rooms sometimes have heavy doors because of the humidity inside. So I tried again. The handle moved, but the door didn't. It felt like something on the outside was holding it shut. I pushed harder. Nothing. My girlfriend looked over and asked if everything was okay. I told her the door was stuck. She stood up and came over to help. Together, we pushed the door again. Still nothing. The steam inside the room was thick, and the air was getting hotter by the minute. At that point, we started knocking on the door. At first, it was just light knocking, then louder. "Hello? Is anyone there?" But there was no response. No footsteps outside, no voices, just silence. That's when the situation started becoming uncomfortable. Steam rooms are designed to be used for short periods of time, 10 minutes, maybe 15, but we had already been inside longer than that, and the heat was starting to feel overwhelming. The air inside was thick and humid. Breathing felt heavier. We kept knocking on the door again and again. Eventually, I started hitting the door with my fist. Still nothing. The thought that crossed my mind at that moment was terrifying. What if someone had actually blocked the door from the outside? The possibility didn't make sense, but the door clearly wasn't opening. Minutes started passing. The heat inside the room kept building. My girlfriend was starting to panic. She kept asking how long we had been inside. At that point, I honestly wasn't sure anymore. It felt like much longer than it probably was. Eventually, I started shouting, "Hello? Can someone open the door?" The steam made it hard to even see each other clearly now. Everything felt hotter, more suffocating. Time started passing in a strange way. 5 minutes felt like 20. We kept pounding on the door over and over. Then, finally, we heard something. Footsteps outside. Someone walking toward the door. A few seconds later, there was a loud metallic sound, like something heavy being moved. Then the door suddenly opened. Cool night air rushed inside the steam room immediately. Standing outside the door was a construction worker wearing dusty clothes and holding a toolbox. He looked surprised to see us. "Are you okay?" he asked. We stepped outside quickly, trying to catch our breath. I asked him what had happened to the door. He looked confused for a moment, then pointed to the handle. Someone had placed a metal maintenance bar across the outside handle, a bar that made it impossible to open the door from inside. I asked him who had done that. He shook his head. "I don't know." Then he said something that made the entire situation even stranger. Apparently, in the past, there had been other strange incidents in that same steam room. Guests finding the door blocked, people getting trapped inside, no one ever admitting to doing it, no cameras facing that area, and no explanation. We didn't stay at that hotel another night. We checked out the next morning, but sometimes I still think about that moment. because someone placed that metal bar across the door, and whoever did it had to know we were inside. About 3 years ago, my wife and I took a short trip to celebrate our anniversary. We didn't want anything too fancy, just a quiet hotel somewhere outside the city where we could relax for a couple of days. After browsing online for a while, we booked a small hotel located near a lake in a rural area about 2 hours from where we lived. The place looked nice in the photos. Not a large hotel, maybe 15 or 20 rooms total, but modern and well-maintained. When we arrived in the late afternoon, everything seemed normal. The parking lot had several cars. The lobby had a few people checking in. Nothing unusual. The receptionist greeted us politely and gave us a room on the second floor. Our room faced the back of the property, toward a small wooded area behind the hotel. At first, we actually liked that. It meant the room was quieter than the ones facing the road. After unpacking, we decided to walk down to the lake for a bit before dinner. The area around the hotel was beautiful. Tall trees, quiet walking paths, and the lake reflecting the evening sky. By the time we returned to the hotel, it was already dark outside. We spent the evening watching TV and relaxing. Everything felt normal. Around midnight, we turned off the lights and went to sleep. At some point during the night, I woke up suddenly. At first, I didn't know why. Sometimes when you're sleeping somewhere unfamiliar, your brain reacts to small sounds more easily. I looked around the dark room for a moment. Everything seemed quiet. Then I noticed something. A faint light moving across the curtain covering the window. It looked like a small beam of light, like someone moving a flashlight outside. At first I assumed it was just a car passing somewhere nearby, but the movement of the light didn't look like headlights. It moved slowly, side to side, almost like someone scanning the window. I sat up slightly and looked toward the curtain. The light moved across it again, this time slower. That's when I walked quietly toward the window. I pulled the curtain aside slightly. Outside the window was a narrow walkway that ran along the back side of the hotel building. It was mostly used by maintenance staff. And standing on that walkway was a man. He was holding something in his hands. At first, I thought it was a flashlight, but when I looked closer, I realized it was actually a small handheld camera. The light I had seen earlier wasn't a flashlight. It was the small recording light on the camera. The man was pointing it directly toward our window. The moment he realized I was looking at him, he froze. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he quickly lowered the camera and walked away down the walkway. I woke my wife immediately and told her what had happened. We both went to the window to look outside again, but the man was already gone. The next morning, we went down to the front desk and explained the situation. The receptionist looked confused. She told us there shouldn't have been anyone walking along that maintenance path during the night. It was normally locked. So she called the hotel manager. The manager listened carefully to what we described. Then he asked us something strange. "What floor did you say your room was on?" When we told him it was the second floor, he looked even more confused, because according to him, the maintenance walkway behind the hotel only reached the first floor, meaning the person with the camera should not have been able to stand directly outside our window, unless they had used something else, something tall enough to reach the second floor. We checked out later that day, but before leaving, I walked behind the hotel to look at that area myself. And when I did, I saw something leaning against the wall of the building. A tall aluminum ladder, positioned directly beneath our window.